What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Pitts from Pitts and Push Sports Talk Radio, Pitt Sports Zone. Coming to you live from Bowie State University with the defensive coordinator, Coach Sewell. How you doing today, man?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I can't complain, man.
Good.
Good day of practice today.
Yeah, it was good. The weather has been nice, which is a good change for us. We had freezing temperatures every day for practice probably the last couple of weeks, so it was good to, get some sun and, some good weather, get the guys an opportunity to fly around a little bit and not be focused on, being cold and everything.
So before we jump into some of the questions that I have, you can, for those who may not know who you are, if you can briefly introduce yourself to the audience.
All right, I'm Antone Sewell. I'm defensive coordinator and assistant head coach here at Bowie State University. I'm a Bowie State graduate, class of 2003, played football there, originally from what's now known as the DMV. Born in Washington, D.C., raised in between Washington, D.C. and PG County, New Carrollton, Maryland. Specifically, went to Fairmont Heights High School, which is right in PG County. And then, like I said, graduated from Bowie. Had an opportunity to coach coming out of college. Went to Fort Valley State University down in Georgia. Coached there for a year. Coached back at Bowie for a year. Then my first full-time coaching job was at Prairie View A&M, which is in Texas, about 40 minutes outside of Houston. Was there, won a championship there as a defensive backs coach. Came back to Bowie. Spent the last, spent about 12 years there. Won 3 championships. Has had a couple good playoff runs during my time at Bowie. And, came back, went to Alabama State for a brief stint during the spring of 2022. And, came back home to, coach with Coach Wilson and try to help get things turned around here in Morgan last summer.
That's crazy. I did not know you was at Prairie View.
Yeah.
And that's the SWAC, right?
Yep.
That's news. I did not know that.
Yeah.
How does it feel when you go from being a person who was received on the coaching? And was it Coach Frazier was there? Was he your coach when he was there, right?
Yes, sir.
He was the coach then when he was there. So how does it, you go from being coached to now being coached? Just talk about the passion that it goes into. Of course, football is a passion for you.
Right.
But being able to give back and pour into those that are coming up after you, just talk about that emotion of feeling and, your desire to want to do it.
Well, for me, it was I would say easy transition. I think that the one thing that helped me is going away to be a grad assistant. I think it would have been difficult for me to coach my teammates, guys that I had just left being on the field with and, hung out on campus and, got into, all different type of things. With now coming back, trying to lead those guys right away would have been a difficult transition for me. But, having an opportunity to go away to Fort Valley, my former defensive coordinator, John Morgan, took the head coaching job there. So it was easy for me to go with him because I knew his system. I knew kind of how he wanted to run things because I was one of his captains on the defense during my time at Bowie. But being a coach, it has been fulfilling for me because coaches meant so much to me growing up. I grew up during the time and, just being transparent during the 1980s in DC. I grew up during the height of the crack epidemic, and it hit very, very close to home, in my home, specifically. My dad was, in and out of jail most of the time I grew up. So it wasn't really until I started playing sports and just really, really, that's when I started to really, really see genuine, love and appreciation and care from other men. Yeah. Prior to that, it was my grandmothers and my aunt's friends that would come around and, they were good men. They helped out and, but it wasn't really a mentoring type of deal. Right. They would come around when we would have family functions or, maybe like a party or something like that. So it was always like, oh, that's Uncle such and such. But they were seen as fun guys. Right. It wasn't until I started to play sports where, I started to receive that structure and discipline that I needed as a young man from my coaches, and also just, having little league coaches that weren't getting paid anything, but those guys would pick us up for practice and, drop us off for practice. And, one of our coaches, he worked for the Washington Post, and he would come and pick me and some of my teammates up on, in the middle of the night on Saturday, take us down to the Washington Post plant and have us go out and deliver papers with him on Sunday just to, kind of keep us out of trouble, but also teaches that work ethic, and just kind of teaches that, hey, like there are other ways for you guys to go out and get the things that you want to have. So for me, becoming a coach, it was a natural transition because one, I love the game, but two, it allows me to still to this day have an impact on young men who I know need that.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you said, because, not being from this area, but understanding being born in the 80s, the difference for me was that, I had to escape gang violence.
Right.
So that was my biggest struggle. And unfortunately, my dad living here, I was able to move and see a different side of life or a different location that in essence, I feel, for me, saved my life. Right. So, and then when you talk about the importance of your coaches, because I remember my coach Jefferson, Coach Bob, you're right. They go from, we look at them as coaches, but they become more than just a coach.
Indeed.
And, to you, and now pouring that back into, some coaches may not feel like they're mentors, but in genuine they are, right? Because especially at a collegiate level, because you're taking a bunch of different young men from different backgrounds, and now you're trying to force them to be on the same path, the same goal, and operate on the same frequency. And, for you, it's commendable and it's to be commended for, because not only that, your son, like I have a son and I watch how my son grow when he see me help other young men. And I just know for your son and just watching, that's an admiration of his. And not only that, that's more so something that he's picking up that you're not even really directly giving to him, but he sees you doing. So, kudos to you for that, man.
Appreciate that.
When we talk about the season, you guys are top 5 in turnovers, right? Defense, I haven't seen a defense of yours that don't fly around the ball, right? So do you take, when you talk about your philosophy as being a defensive coordinator, are you taking, is this, things that you love doing and you're implementing that as your defensive scheme, or are you taking bits and pieces of things that you've seen or was taught along the way?
I think that what I try to do is I try to make sure that anything I'm associated with, if I'm in a leadership position, it takes on some of my personality. And I want to try to make the game fun for the guys. Sometimes defensively, we get in the mindset of, our job is just to stop, and we're also reactionary. Like we have to see what the offense is doing, and then we react, and then we act based off of what they're doing. I want my guys to be aggressive and attack. And I know that it makes the game fun for those guys. When we're attacking the ball and we're game tackling, and we're playing aggressive and we're rotating a bunch of guys and keeping everybody engaged. That makes it fun for our guys. But here, this is a unique situation for me because outside of the brief experience that I had at Alabama State, this is my first time being a coordinator and having a full staff. Okay. So I have been able to pull things and receive information and input from my staff and implement those things as some of the foundational things that we have within our scheme. Now it's still, I'm not going to stray too far away from what I believe in, but I also understand that, hey, we put this staff together, myself and Coach Wilson, because we believe all of these guys had qualities that can help us, to bring this program up. So I don't want to try to keep guys under my thumbprint when I know that, if I step back and allow them to have input and come to work every day knowing that their voice matters, now they're really going to be able to blossom and grow, and this is going to make us a better defense.
Not only that, it also heightens their confidence and their ability to, at some point in their careers, if they were to receive an offer, to be able to step up and be a defensive coordinator. Yes, they already know what that pedigree feels like, because you don't umbrella it to say I'm the boss and we just act as I say act. When we talk about this season that is going, of course, we don't have the wins that we want, but each game, you guys were in it. And defensively, you guys fly around to the ball. You just talk about the mindset of your defensive players.
One of the things that I've adopted, whether it be here when I was at Bowie or like the brief stint I had at Alabama State, is We want to be masters of things that require no talent. And effort is one of those things that we talk about a lot, but not just effort, just accountability, being good teammates, communicating. So things that like, it's not like when you're at the FCS level or before when I was at the D2 level, we've had some really, really good players, but we aren't always going to get the pick of the litter.
Right.
Sometimes we're going to have some guys who may be undersized, maybe a step slower, maybe a late bloomer, whatever the case may be, and we have to make those guys into what we need them to be in order for us to be successful. So when you talk about guys flying around and making plays and so on and so forth, my job as the coordinator is I try to put that battery in their back a little bit, just to kind of tell those guys, hey, we have to do this in order for us to be successful. My job is to always set a bar for them higher than even what they can see themselves being. And what I know is you may never reach my level of expectation, but if that's what you're striving for,
Right.
then I know that there's a good possibility that you end up being a really good or a great player.
Yeah.
So my job is to set the bar so high that just them trying to reach that expectation level, we're gonna end up having a really good player for ourselves. So, it's one of those things where, I'm constantly just on the guys about their effort, on the guys about finishing. I never allow them to think that what they did, like doing enough is enough. It's one of those things where, hey, good play, but here's how you could have made a great play.
Yeah.
Or here's what you could have been, here's what you could have done to make that play 2 yards earlier. So just not allowing guys to get complacent and get in the mindset of, hey, we've arrived. Because once you feel like you've arrived, that's when that fall is gonna come hard. It's gonna be a swift fall.
I mean, anytime we feel, and when you say that, it's funny because I shared that with a couple of students at Bowie recently, was that, you never want to be comfortable. You always want to be uncomfortable. The moment you feel like you're comfortable, you don't have any more room to grow because you feel that you've already hit the ceiling of your potential.
Right.
So, challenging yourself, and not just within the game of sports, but challenging yourself, outside of sports, because at the end of the day, not everybody gets to make it to the NFL. Like, that is our childhood dream. So everything that they learn on the field from you is to transition to off the field as well, and how to, their integrity, their character, their discipline. If you can just talk a little bit before I ask you the final question, if you could talk about just the importance and the leadership of Coach Wilson.
Man, Coach Wilson is a guy who I've had the pleasure of knowing for about 25 years now. As a student, as a fellow student, and then the very next year as one of my coaches for my entire playing time at Bowie, and then being colleagues, at Prairie View. We were friends when he was coaching at Texas Southern, working together at Prairie View, and then I was blessed enough to have him call and offer me the job at Bowie. So I've been working beside him for the last 12, 13 years, and I say beside, not under him, because Coach Wilson is he doesn't have a dictator type mentality. It's not, hey, my way or the highway type of deal. Coach Wilson is the type of person who he gives you room and tools to grow, and to me, it's no surprise that we've had the success that we've had, as a program during our time at Bowie, and even, as this thing continues to build, I can see the vision. One of the things that I try to do is just understand that I know it. We have some guys, coaches and players, who haven't seen how it all plays out.
Right.
And sometimes they don't necessarily agree with why we're doing this, why we're doing that. And I'm like, hey, the best thing to do is just realize what we're doing. Figure out how to get what you need to get within the parameters of what he's given us. But he's the type of guy where if you identify a problem, as long as you have a solution, he's okay with it. He's not going to say, hey, we're going to do this because this is the way I say do it. There's always a method to things that he does. He's a guy, he has a degree in social work, so he's always always working on the psyche of others around them. Again, that's coaches, players, administrators, and everything. I know that he's a guy that's always 2 steps ahead. You know, when you think that, like you kind of like he does on this kind of head scratching, he understands what he's setting it up for. Like you playing chess, you know, like why did you do that? Well, I know if I do this, you gonna do that, and now then I'm gonna make my move, you know. So and for me, an easy guy to work with because, you know, I built up enough trust with him where he's never just over my shoulder.
Right.
You know, it's never, hey, do this, do this, do this. He'll come to me and say, you know, even when at practice at times when he comes down and he stands and watches the defense, I know I'm not being judged. Where he can interject and help, he will. But man, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to continue to bring stability and eventually bring some success to the program.
Talk about last question. If you can give me your adversary, something that didn't, something that helped you grow,
right? Yeah.
An adverse situation, something that helped you grow, and then if you can share like one of your fondest or one of your a joyful moment in your process as coaching.
You mean like throughout my whole career?
Yeah, throughout your whole career.
Well, really, I mean, I had some adversity my very first year as a coach, both on and off the field. You know, on the field, I was a guy that was, 23 years old, and I thought I knew everything and had the answers. And going down there, when we went to Fort Valley, they were a successful program already, and those guys, they challenged me a lot. I had to mature quickly. I couldn't respond like Tone per se. I had to be Coach Sewell, and there were some moments where I got into it with some guys and so on and so forth. Not like to the point of fighting, but way more back and forth than I should have as a coach. And so I had to grow through that. But also, I went down there to go to be a grad assistant, and the way it was set up, none of our grad classes were on campus at Fort Valley. So I had to go like 30 minutes away just to go to class. And after a while, I was like, man, I came here to coach ball. So I was neglecting my academic obligations, and I ended up losing my scholarship for grad school because I fell below the GPA, which means I wasn't getting paid anymore to coach. And I went back down there for the spring thinking things would get rectified, and they didn't. So I spent 3 months down there, no job, no income, anything, just kind of living off the little bit of money I had and getting money from my grandmother, maybe some of the other coaches here and there. And I had to make a decision. So at the end of spring ball, I had to pack my stuff up and come home, and I didn't know what direction I was going to go in at that point. I ended up coming home and working odd jobs. I worked as a government mover. I worked as a truck driver and so on and so forth. And, I had a lot of idle time and was into some things I probably shouldn't have been into. And Coach Frazier, ironically, called me and said, hey, man, I got a job for you. And I was like, Coach, man, I'll leave tomorrow if you need me to. Like, I knew I needed some direction in my life. And he called me. I mean, he was like, well, I got to wait till July 1, but the 5th of July, you need to be here ready to work. So, and this was like May 2005. So, that's why he and I are so close. Obviously, I played for him, but, he really, in my opinion, he saved my life because, most of the people I was hanging with at that time in between Fort Valley and volunteering at Bowie and going to Prairie View, man, honestly, most of those guys are dead and in jail now. So there's no telling where I would be had I not got that call that day. So, I'm always extremely grateful for him for that. And what was the other one?
Well, actually, you kind of really did.
Okay.
Like the greatest joy, and that's the joy is that.
Honestly, my greatest joy is winning the championship at Bowie because it was a full circle moment because my last game at Bowie, we lost the championship. And winning the championship was the greatest moment. It was like kind of the culmination of all the work we put in. But really, that next year when we won the championship and my lady and my son were able to be there and seeing them when I came off the field, it was a different feeling because, you know, they were there with me and, you know, sacrificing through all the hard nights and I mean, through all the long nights and the road trips and, you know, with her being a coach, us having to figure out put everything, hey, this person gotta drop them off before a game, or you gotta take them to a game with you and so practice with you and so on and so forth. So, you know, there were a lot of sacrifices made for us to reach that point and for them to be able to share in that moment with me. Like I would say that was probably my greatest joy as a coach.
Yeah, shout out to Coach Swan. So this was great, man. I appreciate you. Wow, it's crazy, you know, because when I tell people, it's like I remember it when I was at Bowie, but you know, I was a knucklehead at that year at Bowie. So, you know, and I had some growing up to do. Was in my ways and wasn't used to really the living in Maryland and was still Pittsburgh mindset. And you know, it took me going through and losing some things in order for me to get my life back. But no, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking this time to sit down.
Listen, I appreciate you giving us this platform, man. I mean, I think we have a lot of good things going here at Morgan, at Bowie. You know, I think all of the entities that you guys focus on, I think it's great because it's like you guys understand that we have some really, really great quote unquote hidden gems right here in this area. You know, I think you guys do a good job of helping get that message out to other people. So absolutely, it's appreciated for sure.
Again, catch me, your boy Pitts and Foot Sports Talk Radio, Pitt Sports Zone. Coming to you live, Bowie TV. Check us on Comcast Channel 77, Verizon Channel 11. Again, here with Coach Sue, Morgan State University defensive coordinator, assistant head coach.